Okay, guys, let's talk about something that you may not expect. Why you gotta give Defiant kudos. Alright, we all know Defiant locks are the cheapest of the cheap. Cheap, cheap, cheap. I don't know how much this pack costs. Somebody brought it in. We're frequently people, this had to be master keyed, so they buy cheap locks. Probably not much for this deadbolt. Now, of course, Defiant's a Defiant and a Defiant. It's just a cheap lock. But let's take a look at it. So we have a lifetime guarantee, Brandywine collection, alignment rings on the knob, and we see here 3 pick resistant pins in deadbolt. So we're going to count those. Anti-saw rod in the latch, 4 keys. And that's pretty much it. So why would you be saying you're giving this lock company kudos when it is a cheap lock? There is one main reason why, and that is the deadbolt. For years and years and years, you would get on a job and you would try to take the door lock off, and typically this happened on the single cylinder because you can get so much torque on it. They used to use a flat bar that came out the back. Double cylinder had the fork style, a very common fork style latch with the cross tailpiece, the mechanism. So for years and years they had that flat tailpiece, and then when the door got misaligned and you try to lock the deadbolt, you would try to turn it and it would bend that tailpiece. And many times you'll walk up on a door and you'll take the interior thumb turn off, and that flat tailpiece will be twisted 180, 260, 360 degrees. I've seen those tailpieces twisted 360 degrees easily, if not more. And you have to take a pair of pliers from the inside and turn that tailpiece and bend it back to be able to even get the outside cylinder off. So that boils down to, why am I giving Defiant kudos? Because Defiant saw that problem and they actually did something about it. They changed their tailpieces to what at first looks like a quickset style, but if you look close, it is similar to quickset, but it's actually not. And you can tell that with the latch. So on a single cylinder version of this is basically one long bar. And instead of having a flat tailpiece that can bend, they have a much superior, for this kind of lock, a much superior version. So again, why am I giving them kudos? I'm giving them kudos because they didn't go along with the fold, and they didn't take somebody else's design. They saw a need, they saw a problem, they sat down and they said, well, let's just do this and we're going to come up with our own. As far as the latch world in deadbolt, there is the plus kind that uses a little cross in the center. There's a quickset style, and then there's like old Weiser, which was similar to old Baldwin, where it just has a square and 2 flat pieces go into it. And there's one other one, I can't think of it offhand. But anyway, my main point about this is they saw a need where their flat tail pieces were bending really bad, and they changed the deadbolt. And instead of going along with the fold, they made their own latch style and tailpiece style to fix the problem. Which, if this got bent, it would probably destroy it. Again, it's a cheap deadbolt, so who cares if that happens. But let's go ahead and take a look at the pins. Now, I've already rekeyed this. I didn't look at the top pins to see if there were actually spool pins in there, but we'll go ahead and take it back apart and see. Where's my keys? They say 3. So now we got master pins in here, so let's just be careful with that part of it. Now when you're master keying these, let's look at the plug. Even with security pins in it, let me get in a brighter light situation here. We see some heavy chamfering. We see the common slot Now, when you're using real thin master wafers, you do have to be careful that they don't, when you drop them in there, they can drop in sideways, and you'll often find the little wafers in here. But this is a machining thing. I guess it's cheaper to make cylinders like this. And I hate this, you know. It's typical Zamac, pot metal, whatever. And it's got that slit, and it's pretty heavily chamfered. So if you have a number 4, so it's a quick set. So if you have a number 4 cut that typically would use a 240 pin, you can literally go down to like 228 almost. You can almost go a full depth without having it affect the key. And they did that because, as other people have, even Schlage has done that, where they chamfer those plugs so heavily. And I believe that is because of bad copies, problems with bad copies from hardware stores and big box stores. So to solve that problem, they simply all are chamfering the plug now. So we're gonna, don't really like doing this. It's got all the same springs in there, so that's no biggie. But it looks like there's our master wafer. Goes in there. Looks like we have 1, 3, and 5 have spool pins in them. Standard spool pins. So 1 spool, standard, 3 spool, standard, 5 spool. So they do indeed have 3 spool pins in there, which again is kind of counteracted by the heavy chamfering on the plug. But long story, I got the sniffles today. The main point, the main kudos that I want to give them, and this is speaking from somebody who fights those all the time. I mean, if you get on a Reiki and you see older Defiant locks, and you're gonna have a twisted tailpiece. So when you go into Reiki a house, to get that lock off the door, you have to have a pair of pliers to untwist it. And of course, once you twist and untwist metal, it gets all fooey and bent, and you can clamp it in a vise and straighten it and all that. But as we all know, once you bend metal, I mean, that pretty much puts a weak point on the metal and can cause it to break later on. But they saw a need. They came up with a whole new design, even though it's very similar to a Kwikset. They didn't copy Kwikset. And Defiant locks also have this inner ring, which actually, this is not real great, because you see this a lot on older houses with a small hole. People have it sitting off the door because that ring won't go into an 1 5/8 hole if they're retrofitting an older lock. So these are strictly only good on, you know, prefab metal doors or whatever that already have the hole in it. 2 1/8" hole cut. Otherwise, you got to re-drill to make that sit right. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that real quick. The reason why I give Defiant Lock Company kudos, not because of anything else, but because of them seeing a need, them changing it, and not copying anybody else. While we have it out, they didn't really change the knob much. It's still your standard post spindle. These little alignment rings, really, that probably helps people get the screws in there. But pretty much the same on the knobs, no difference there. They just modified the deadbolts because they saw a problem and probably had to warranty quite a few of them, so that's why they changed it. So anyway, thanks for watching this part of it, guys. Y'all take it easy.